The Montreal Canadiens blue line is getting to be pretty stacked when you look at the next couple of years coming. So which young Canadiens defenseman will get or keep an NHL job next year? It's been a long time coming, but that perfect storm of getting young defensive prospects that are NHL ready, getting ready to take that next step in their development is all starting to come together for Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. And really, September's training camp promises to be pretty intense as these guys all battle it out, trying to compete for those very few precious opening night roster spots. Let's sit back and take an objective approach and just run the numbers on the young defensemen who could be in the mix in the fall, just to get an idea of how things might shake out. And I'll even give you my thoughts on which young defenseman who is not currently playing in the NHL is going to win a job in the fall. So, like I said, not playing favorites here. We're going to present these guys in alphabetical order and simply take a look at their statistics and how they've been performing this year. First up, we have Justin Barron. Barron has had a bit of an up and down season, of course, starting the year back with the NHL club again, has played 41 games for the Montreal Canadiens, and in those 41 games played earlier in the season, had 6 goals and 6 assists for 12 points. He was also -4 in those 41 games played, but he did have 1 power play goal and 1 game-winning goal. Not once, but twice this year, we've seen NHL defensemen sent down to Laval, and Justin Barron was the second of the two to have that happen. He is still in the AHL. He's played 26 games for Laval, and in those 26 games has been a good presence, mostly on the second pairing, sometimes on the first. 26 games played with 1 goal and 9 assists for 10 points. So Justin Barron has obviously kind of taken his lumps this season, but he is still a steady, reliable defenseman who's doing a pretty decent job. Next up, we have Kaiden Guhle. I think it's safe to say that Kaiden Guhle is the relied on young defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens back end. In his 66 games with the Habs so far this year, he's got 6 goals and 13 assists for 19 points, including a game-winning goal in there as well. Kaiden Guhle is reliable. He works hard. He's extremely talented. He's very skilled. He's got great leadership qualities both on and off the ice. He is kind of the complete package of the future veteran leader that they're developing now. Next up, we have Jordan Harris. Now, Jordan Harris has found himself as a healthy scratch on more than one occasion this season. He has played just 45 games this year for the Montreal Canadiens, has 2 goals and 8 assists in that time frame for 10 points. Jordan Harris is one of those, could he be moved? Could he be packaged out in a deal? Because we know that the back end is just getting way too crowded for the Montreal Canadiens. There will need to be movement of perhaps 1 or more veterans, or maybe a younger guy like Jordan Harris. We'll have to wait to see. Lane Hutson is someone who certainly could be in the mix, in the conversation this fall. Still playing in the NCAA. In his 35 games in the NCAA this season, a whopping 13 goals and 33 assists for 46 points. He's a +10 on the season. He's also made the Hockey East first All-Star team, and he's a top 10 finalist for the Hobey Baker Award this year. Lane Hutson is going to be a special player, and it's just a matter of when is he going to transition to the NHL, or will he spend some time, once he goes pro, will he spend some time in the AHL first? Continuing our alphabetical look at young defensemen for the Canadiens this year, Logan Mailloux has played all 63 of his games this season for Laval in his rookie year with 14 goals and 28 assists. His plus-minus rating is even at 0, and on a team that had struggled as much as they did early in the season, that's actually pretty impressive. He's got 2 power play goals, 2 game-winning goals. And if you don't realize how special all of those numbers are, let me break it down a little farther for you. Logan Mailloux was an AHL All-Star this year in his rookie season. He is tied for 6th place of all rookie skaters in the AHL. That's forwards or defensemen in terms of points with his 42 points. And he is 4th in that category in assists for 28 assists. In AHL defensemen, he is third in AHL defensemen in points with 42 and fourth in AHL defensemen with those 14 goals. Gets even better, though. He leads all AHL rookie defensemen in points and goals, and he is second in rookie defensemen in assists with those 28 assists. Logan Mailloux is absolutely taking his position in the AHL by storm and is one of the biggest success stories coming out of Laval so far this year. David Reinbacher, of course, has just arrived on the scene in Laval. He's played 3 games in the AHL already, and he's got a goal and an assist in those 3 games, and he's a +2. He has come in, made his first few games a good impression, and looked very comfortable. We'll see if they make the playoffs or not, but David Reinbacher obviously already making a decent adjustment to the North American game, and we'll see how that progresses. Jayden Struble, probably for many, was a bit of a surprise at the beginning of the season. He started the year in Laval with 12 games played, 1 goal, 5 assists for 6 points in those 12 games. He was a +4 during that time. And Jayden Struble, I had said many times on this program, and even last year when he played at the end of the season, that he looked like someone who could end up being a really decent defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. Well, he got called up to the NHL this year and kind of made sure that he couldn't be sent back down because he naturally just transitioned so well to the NHL game, looked like he absolutely belonged there and had been playing in the NHL for a long time. And so in his 45 NHL games played this season, he's got 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points. And quite frankly, Jayden Struble certainly does not look out of place in the NHL. But again, it's all going to come down to a very few number of spots available in the NHL come this fall, depending on how many guys get moved out, with a lot of prospects vying for those very few positions. William Trudeau is another AHL defenseman who's actually had a pretty decent season for himself. He's played 61 games for Laval this year with 6 goals and 16 assists for 22 points. You typically can find him on the first or second pairing these days. Whether or not he actually starts to compete for an NHL job, I don't think that's necessarily in the cards for him next season, but he certainly has shown some growth this season. There's still some things I think that he needs to work on, but has had a better season this year than he has in the past. That also brings us to Arbor Xhekaj, the other guy who split some time between the NHL and Laval this year. Of course, 39 games in the NHL, 3 goals and 6 assists for 9 points, and is a +5 with the Canadiens this season. He did spend some time down in the AHL after he recovered from his injury, which I think shook a lot of people, Arbor Xhekaj himself included. But in those 17 games, he really embraced what was happening in his game progression and development, had 3 goals and 8 assists, was a +3 with 2 power play goals and a game-winning goal in just that short sample of 17 games in the American Hockey League. And Arbor Xhekaj has since come back to the NHL and seems to have found his footing again, and perhaps, I believe, learned some lessons along the way as well. So like I say, at best, you have 7 defensemen on an NHL roster at any given time, and complete with the guys who we know are going to stay, like Caden Gooley, for example, plus veterans who are currently on the roster. We don't know how many of those are going to be moved out, but it leaves a very small amount of space for all of these defensive prospects to try to compete to win a job on the NHL roster on opening night. I believe that if anybody has a real solid shot at doing that, it's going to be Logan Mailloux. I know everyone wants me to say David Reinbacher, but give me just a minute here. As I said, Logan Mailloux has taken his position by storm in the AHL this season, and all of that done on a Laval Rocket team that, quite frankly, the first half of the year looked like they would finish probably in the bottom 3 places in the league. He's done that in spite of all of that. He has a mature game. There are still areas that need to be worked on, but I truly think that he could be a top contender to take an NHL job with the Canadiens this fall. That's not to slight what could happen with David Reinbacher or even Lane Hutson whenever he is going to arrive on the scene. However, my prediction for David Reinbacher is that if he doesn't win the job in the fall out of training camp, that he will simply be in Laval for a short stint to start the season, sort of like Jaden Struble this year, and then will likely be recalled very early in the season, probably maybe even in November. And then we'll stay there for the rest of the season because injuries will naturally happen. And I think at that point he gets called up and it's up to him then to grasp the opportunity. Lane Hutson is a little bit of the wild card as well because we don't yet know how his performance is going to transition to the professional game, whether it's in the AHL or the NHL. So I'm not going to make a prediction as to where Lane Hutson is going to end up yet because I haven't seen him play in a pro league yet. But I believe Logan Mailloux could definitely compete for that NHL job, and I think David Reinbacher is really going to be close behind him. And hey, in case you missed it, David Reinbacher had a very impressive debut to his AHL career last weekend, played 3 games in 3 days, and in his very first game, scored a goal. And he didn't even stop there. And if you actually happen to miss my complete review of David Reinbacher's debut weekend and how Laval has crawled their way back into a playoff place, well, then you're going to want to check out this video right here, and I will see you again next time.